Should I stop sharing now?
It's starting now. I'll let you know in a moment.
Okay.
So we'll wait for a few seconds for everyone to join, and then we're good now. We're live now. So hello, everyone. My name is Sudhir. I hope everyone's been having a great day and is all set for this exciting session ahead. Before we start the session, we would like to thank all our partners for supporting and promoting us for this event. I'm going to introduce our speaker today. We have Boni García with us. He's a proud author of more than 35 research papers in different journals, magazines, and international conferences. A PhD holder in Information and Communication Technology from Technical University of Madrid in Spain, and he's been a visitor professor. His area of interest in research, including web engineering, software testing, and cloud computing. In this talk, he's going to share his valuable insights on developing end-to-end tests with Selenium 4 and Java, and that's my favorite too. Today, he's going to help us know about build tools, unit testing framework, and assertion libraries required to implement comprehensive Selenium WebDriver tests. Let's join hands with him to understand about the tools for our end-to-end test. Boni, stage is yours. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining me. It's my pleasure to give this talk. So I think you can see my screen now. So this is a talk about how to develop end-to-end tests with Selenium 4 and Java. Okay. Well, I want to start this presentation with a question. What is Selenium? It's a simple question, but the answer couldn't be that simple. If we take a look to the documentation, we see this motto of Selenium automates browser. That's it. What do you do with power is entirely up to you. So, well, I work as a professor. This is not a real definition. So I want something that Selenium is whatever. Okay. So I'm going to start a little experiment with you if you help me. So please, if you enter in this URL, okay, this is a Google application. It's a question and answer site. You can help me to understand what is Selenium in your opinion. So if you enter that, please answer with simple words or complete this sentence. Selenium is, and whatever you think it's Selenium, okay? It's a little experiment to check what people think what is Selenium. This I'm going to gather the responses in here. If you respond, well, we start at some point getting some answers. So, well, in the meantime, what you are entering into that URL, okay? Well, in fact, I need to share that URL. Sorry about that. Here, right, that one. So, in the meantime, you answer if you want. I'm going to check a bit about the Selenium site, because in the Selenium site is supposed to find the answer to this question, what is Selenium? In the About page, they said Selenium is a suite of tools for automation web browsers. And that's true. It's a suite of different components. Selenium IDE, it's a tool, it's a plugin, a browser plugin, so it is a tool. Selenium Grid, well, it's in infrastructure, I would say. It's a network infrastructure for providing browsers to Selenium WebDriver, which is the last component, maybe the first in importance. It's a library, in my opinion. So more or less, yes, it's a suite of tools, kinda, okay, library, infrastructure, and an actual tool. In the GitHub page, we can see that Selenium is a browser automation framework. Well, and the word framework, well, it's those of words that it's not quite clear what is it. There is more or less a consensus about a framework. It's something that, well, you forced to create some software with a design, with some foundation for you, and also, well, the framework is supposed to call your code. So I am not completely sure that Selenium fits in that definition of framework. More or less, okay, but well, it's not clear for me. So the last page I'm showing here is the front page of the documentation, the official documentation, that says that Selenium is an umbrella project for a range of tools and libraries. And I like that definition. It's an umbrella project, so it covers different components, yes, for a range of tools and libraries. Here includes tools and also libraries. Okay. So, well, as you can see, we have different definitions depending on the one we read. So now let's see what you think about that. How? This is the word cloud of your answers. You can see browser, tools, framework, automation, allows, used to automate browser, implicit changes, Java, source, behavior, framework, user. Well, as you can see, this simple question, what is Selenium, or complete this sentence in Selenium is, it's not quite clear, I think, because, well, different people think different stuff for this quite simple question. So, well, let's continue with my point of view of this question. What is Selenium? Because I wrote a book about Selenium recently, and, well, I have to define that. So that is my personal feeling about what is Selenium. For me, Selenium is an open source umbrella project, okay, which is basically what we read in the documentation, that enables the automation of web browsers. So it allows to drive web browser automatically. And it has three components, three sub-projects, we would say. Selenium WebDriver, which is the heart of Selenium, it's a library. For me, it's a library for controlling software, okay, for driving browser automatically using code, okay, programmatically, using Java, JavaScript, Python, etc. Then we have IDE. IDE, as I said, it's a tool. It's a browser plugin that allows to record and playback within the browser. Okay. And finally, we have Grid, which is a network infrastructure that provides remote browser to be used with Selenium WebDriver. Okay. So that's, in my humble opinion, what is Selenium. Okay, it's a project that compounds three different elements, three different sub-projects. But being said that, it's also true that Selenium WebDriver, which is the heart of Selenium, was the first component of the Selenium project. And sometimes we call Selenium to refer to Selenium WebDriver. So it's quite common to use the word Selenium to mean the library, okay, to mean Selenium WebDriver. So it's not that bad, in my opinion, said that Selenium is a browser automation library. Okay, that's, in my opinion, it's correct, because Selenium, thinking in Selenium WebDriver, is a library for browser automation. Okay. So this is my impression, what I think now, what I'm comfortable thinking about Selenium, which is Selenium WebDriver is a browser automation library. But now it's important to think what is not Selenium. Okay. That was supposed to be, well, I break the emotion of this. It was supposed to be an animation. Selenium, for me, it's not for me a testing framework. Okay, Selenium, in my humble opinion, is not a testing library. I think this is very controversial because people think that Selenium is a testing tool, it's a testing framework or library. But in my opinion, it's not. Okay, in my opinion, it's an a browser automation library, but it's not necessarily for testing. It's very true that most of people use Selenium for testing, but, well, as you see in the beginning, you can use Selenium for whatever you want. For example, web scraping. Web scraping can be used with Selenium. I know that most of people use for testing, but it's not a testing library, it's not a testing framework. But, well, or most of the people use Selenium for testing, okay, but this is not a testing framework, it's not a testing library. What do I need to do testing with Selenium, okay? And that, in my opinion, it's a good question. Okay? That it's a good question, and it is the focus of this presentation. What do I need to do testing with Selenium? So let's continue with some definition. Well, as you've seen, I like somehow definition. I think it's because of my job as a professor. But I need to define concepts as soon as we are progressing in this talk. Software testing basically is the dynamic evaluation of a piece of software. It's the system that system under text, using some tests, okay, and giving a verdict about him. It passed, it failed, green, red. Okay, that's testing. We evaluate, we run the software, and we make some tests about it, I give a better bit about it. And to make it simple, we have manual and automated testing. And in automated testing, we use specific tools to develop these tests, okay, and control the execution. So regarding the testing levels, we have, as you know, unit, integration, and end-to-end, and among other levels. And this talk is about end-to-end testing, which is a type of testing in which the whole system under test is evaluated through its user interface, typically a graphical user interface. And that is with Selenium, it's a key for this talk, because Selenium is a broad automation library and allows us to drive the browser programmatically. And for that, it's a key element for testing web application in an end-to-end way. But it's not the only element we need for making tests. So if this is true, what do I need to make testing with Selenium? First, as you may know, Selenium, understood as Selenium WebDriver, provides a cross-browser API in different programming languages. These logos here is the official languages supported by Selenium, and there are other people that maintain different language binding for Selenium, but this one, Java, JavaScript, Python, .NET, Ruby, and Kotlin are the official languages supported by Selenium. So the first thing we need to do is to select one language of this. For this task, I have selected Java. Okay, why? Well, because I'm a Java developer, basically. And it's not other reason. You can choose whatever language you want. It's supposed to be the same across languages, but of course, it depends on your personal decision, okay, to select one or another. So in this talk, we focus on how to create tests using Java, okay, but also, what do I need also in addition to Selenium WebDriver? So the next element I need is a testing framework, a real testing framework, because we said that Selenium WebDriver is not a testing framework, it's a browser automation library. So to create tests, I need a so-called unit testing framework. And in Java, we have different components. For example, JUnit 4, okay, this logo is for JUnit 4, JUnit 5, or TestMG. There are others, okay. For example, we can think in 𝒃𝒐𝒏𝒄𝒆, another testing framework for Java. But I reduced to these three, which are quite relevant, okay. I would say that I couldn't choose JUnit 4 for a brand new development, because JUnit 4 is the old version of JUnit, and the most powerful and complete programming model called Jupyter is provided in JUnit 5. Okay, TestMG is also good. Okay, in my opinion, I would use JUnit 5 of TestMG. I tend to use JUnit 5 more because I know Jupyter better than TestMG, but both are quite good testing frameworks. This testing framework, any of these three, basically allows us to create tests. This element composed by different steps. Okay, we set up the system under test. We exercise, we do something when the system under test, and very important, we verify the system under test with some expected value and one real outcome from the system under test. With a comparator in the middle, we have the test verdict, okay? It's green or it's red. So we need to select that. JUnit 5, TestMG, or even JUnit 4, why not? Then optionally, I would select an assertion library, okay? That is not a mandatory step, because the testing framework, such as JUnit or TestMG, already provides specific classes for creating assertions, okay? You might already know. But in my opinion, a specific assertion library is quite convenient. Why? Because this kind of libraries provides two main benefits. First, it improves the code reliability by providing a rich set of assertions, okay? It's very convenient for me to get this assertion because the code is much more readable, okay? And also, these libraries provide better error messages to help testers when a failure happens. And that's very important, because one of the most difficult parts of end-to-end testing, in my opinion, is, try to understand what happened to the system when a test fails. And this is the first step to understand better. And convenient error messages, well, give you at least the first clue to understand what happened. So in that domain, I proposed in 3 assertion libraries. As usual, can be more, but I know these 3: assert_j, 𝒃𝒄𝒆, and 𝒄𝒏𝒄𝒄. I used to use 𝒃𝒄𝒆 some years ago because 𝒃𝒄𝒄 was integrated with JUnit 4. I am not using 𝒃𝒄𝒄 anymore because I think that 𝒄𝒏𝒄, which is maintained by Google, or assert_j provides a better programming model. 𝒄𝒏, I used 𝒄𝒏 some years ago. It's a good one. And currently, I'm using assert_j, okay, because it provides these 2 elements I told you. It provides assertions very fluent, and the error messages are quite convenient. So that is the second element I recommend you to choose, an assertion library. Of course, we need browsers, okay? We are end-to-end testing with application. We need some browser, 1 or several browsers. Ideally, several to make cross-browser testing, but at least 1, okay? And that one for most people is Chrome, because Chrome is the most used browser nowadays. But I recommend you to use several if you can. At least I would use Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. For me, are the major browser nowadays. Of course, there are others like Opera or even Internet Explorer, but well, you know, Internet Explorer is not alive anymore. And in fact, you can use, if your project demands Internet Explorer for some reason, you can use Edge in Internet Explorer mode. Okay, so you can explore that option if you need it. So for supporting the browser, I think there are like 3 big groups. First, this browser can be local, installed in your own machine, Windows, Linux, and Mac typically. Okay. Well, you can. I think this is the first environment that newcomers to Selenium choose. Okay, the local environment is the most simple one. I suppose everyone. Well, I'm pretty sure that everyone has a browser in the computer. So well, it's quite straightforward to have the browser locally installed and using for Selenium. As soon as we progress in end-to-end testing, maybe we are going to need something more advanced, like remote environment for browsers. This is the logo for Selenium Grid, which supports this remote browser, and even we can use Docker. It's something that, in my opinion, is quite relevant. And at the end of this talk, I'm going to show you how to use Docker easily from Java tests. Okay, so well, that's something we can explore later. Finally, we can use a cloud vendor, okay, like SourceLab, LambdaTest, BrowserStack, among others. There are this is companies that provides, well, browser as a service. I like to say it's like a remote browser infrastructure in the cloud, and other services, analytics, a dashboard. You know, that kind of company, it's well, offers different services, and maybe it can be convenient for you. For the beginning, I recommend you to use the local browser, okay, which is the most simple environment you can choose, and I'm going to show you examples about that. If you use local browsers, you need the driver, and that's something that is quite well new for people that are not used to Selenium. The driver is a piece of software. It's a binary file we need to put in the middle of the test using the Selenium WebDriver API and the browser. And why is that? Well, we need that piece because Selenium WebDriver automates the browser using the native capabilities of each browser. But it offers a standard protocol to the test, which is the 𝑤3c WebDriver standard. Okay, it's a recommendation now, and this is a standard protocol. And in this communication, it's, well, depending on the browser, it's one or another thing, okay? It's the native support of each browser. To make this story short, we need this binary in our machine. We need cron driver for controlling Chrome, econ driver for controlling Firefox, and ms_edge driver for controlling Edge, okay? That's a specific binary file we need for our operating system, and we need to place that, okay? That's something we need if we want to use Selenium WebDriver. So we can download this driver manually, okay? We can install manually and we can maintain this manually. But I recommend you to do this in an automated fashion. And for that, we have several tools, okay? In fact, I am the creator and maintainer of these tools. Maybe you heard about WebDriver Manager, which is it's a library, okay, it's a helper library for automated driver management and also other features, okay, not only automated driver management, because as of WebDriver Manager version 5, it provides, well, other features that I'm going to explain a bit today. Also, maybe you don't know the other, this other project. It's called Selenium Jupyter. It's a second project I'm maintaining. Okay, it's a JUnit 5 extension for Selenium WebDriver. In fact, Selenium Jupyter is built on top of WebDriver Manager. Okay, it's like, well, a wrapper for Selenium for WebDriver Manager. I'm going to show you examples about this. Okay, and also Selenium Jupyter provides automated driver management for Java. So let's move on now to the build tools, okay? Because, well, we are creating a Java project, we contain tests, and I recommend you to use a build tools. Basically, build tools are utilities that we use to automate the software lifecycle, okay? I mean, the dependency management, the compilation, the packaging, text execution, deployment, and so on. These tools are very convenient for any project, I would say, not necessarily a big project. Even for a small project, in my opinion, you need something like that, because otherwise the manual, only for the manual dependency management, well, a tool like this is key. So in Java, I would recommend you Maven or Gradle, okay? That's two are very important, and I would use one or another. For a regular user, it's more or less the same, the experience with Maven or Gradle. For legacy project, maybe you are use Ant. I wouldn't use Ant for a brand new project, but still it's a, well, it's a build tool that you can use. And Bazel, it's like, at least for me, it's the new one. It's build tool that it's quite convenient, especially if you are creating a multi-language project, because Bazel can work in a single monorepo with different languages, okay, not only Java, but JavaScript, Python, whatever. So I would use Bazel if your project has multi-language. Otherwise, I would focus on Maven or Gradle, whatever you think is better for you. So regarding build tools, at least we are going to use the dependency management, okay? And this, you can see several snippets for what we need to resolve the dependencies I talk about. The Selenium WebDriver, okay? The Java, the Unit 5, the Unit Jupyter, Assertion Library, and WebDriver Manager so far. These four, at least, we need, and we need to place this code in Maven or Gradle to resolve the dependencies for us. Next, the IDE. Of course, it's not mandatory, but I highly recommend it to use an IDE because it provides some, well, very good experience for development, because it has, as you know, integrated tools for the gap debugging, running, auto-completion, and so on. So in the Java world, we have Eclipse, we have IntelliJ, we have Visual Studio also on Apache NetBeans. Well, I used to be a fan of Eclipse. In fact, I'm still using it. I would say that IntelliJ is one of the most advanced, maybe the most advanced nowadays. Visual Studio is a very good one. And NetBeans, well, I not use a lot of NetBeans, but it still has a relevant community behind. So again, I think it's up to you. Whatever fits you better, you can choose for developing, of course. And well, last but not least, we optionally, maybe we need a build server, okay, or continuous integration server, which is a server-side component with, well, to implement different pipelines, okay, to build our software. And among that, the task that a build server does, it's running the test, okay. Well, this integration server, it's very important, as you may note, for any project. Yes, I would recommend you also to have these pipeline lanes to automate the build of your software. In here, you can see different logos of different build servers. GitHub Actions, it's a very good one. And in fact, if you are using GitHub for open source project, this is free. Okay, so well, it works very nicely. You have machines for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And, well, it's a very good one. This is GitLab CI/CD, and also it's equivalent to GitHub Actions. And in the, well, if you maintain your own infrastructure, you can think in Jenkins, is one of the most used, or Bamboo. Okay. So again, it's up to you to select one or another, but in my opinion, this is an important part for implementing end-to-end tests. Not implementing in this case, but for running. So I think that's enough. I talk a lot about how do I need, but let's go to the code. Okay, talk it cheap. Show me the code that Linus Torvalds said once. So yes, I'm going to show the examples which are containing, well, some of them, not everyone, in a book I published recently. It's a really book about Selenium with Java. Okay, and even if you don't want to buy the book, you cannot afford it, I recommend you to take a look to the code. Okay, in here it's an open source project. It's the complete test suite for different frameworks. Okay, JUnit 4, JUnit 5, TestMG, and JUnit plus Selenium Jupyter. I will show you some examples. For Maven and Gradle, okay, you have the configuration for Maven. This is the Boni XML, and for Gradle in here. Okay, so I recommend you to take a look. It's composed by different packages, and each package it's about different captures, different parts of the Selenium with Java API. I'm going to show you some examples to make an idea about what a Selenium with Java look like with the elements I have explained. So for that, I'm going to use directly the IDE. Okay, this is the first test I want to show you, the hello world. The hello world is basically, a simple test. This is the body of the test. As you can see in here, I open a page and I make that fluid assertion with AssertJ. Assert that the title contains Selenium WebDriver. Okay, as you can see, this assertion is very fluent, it's very readable. And in the before, this is the before, what happened before the test. For all the tests in this class, I resolve the driver using WebDriver Manager. Okay. Then for each test, I create the driver. In this case, Chrome driver, because I want to use Chrome. Okay. And at the end of the test, I quit, like close the test. So if I run this as a test, okay, what is going to happen is that a browser is going to appear. Then my page is loaded, and at the end, I quit. Okay, that's it. It's a simple test, but with different elements. As you can see, I need a test provided by the unit testing framework. In here, I use Selenium WebDriver, and in here, I use WebDriver Manager for the setup of the Chrome driver. Okay. Let me show you the equivalent tests, this time for Selenium Jupyter. Selenium Jupyter is the extension I told you. So I'm going to open this. The benefit of Selenium Jupyter is that, I reduce the boilerplate of the tests to the minimum, I think, because I simply need to put that I'm using this extension. This is of Jupyter, which is JUnit 5. And using dependency injection, I simply need to define the type of the browser I want to use. Okay, this is new of Selenium of JUnit 5, and this is provided by the extension. Okay, the extension made the magic of internally resolving the Chrome driver, instant straight to the driver for the test, and at the end disposing properly. So basically, if I run this, it's going to be exactly the same, but as you can see, the test has been much more compact. Okay, so this is starting. Okay, and that's it. The test, it's green. So this is the typical structure I recommend for a JUnit test using WebDriver Manager. And as of WebDriver Manager 5, I would recommend you this. I'm changing a bit the test. As you can see, now WebDriver Manager also, it's a builder. Okay, with this, instead of using setup, I'm invoking the method create, and as a result, I get the driver directly. Okay, this is exactly the same test from a functional point of view. Okay, I do the same, but waiting a bit less. If I run this, of course, I am going to get the same result. The browser opens and the test passes. And even I can reduce even more, because internally 𝒂𝒂 Manager 5 has a shutdown hook that even if I don't explicitly quit the browser, when the process of this Java process finish, the thread which is keeping an eye to the driver is going to close the driver for us. So if I run this test again, even if I don't call explicitly to quit, 𝒂𝒂 Manager is going to do for us. Okay, so well, this is a new feature of 𝒂𝒂 Manager 5. Okay, so let's move on to more elements that, well, some advanced feature, because I am not going to explain what to do with the Selenium 𝒂𝒂 API, which is happening inside the test, but I'm going to explain different features that both 𝒂𝒂 Manager and Selenium Jupyter provides. And the first one is what I call browser finder. Okay, this capability, let me show you with the code. This capability allows to detect the browser installed or not in my system as an optional path. What for that? For creating assumption. Okay, assumption is something that happened, and if that condition that is not met, the test is skipped. I'm using Windows for this talk, and I'm going to try to use Safari. Safari cannot be installed in a Windows machine. So if I run this test, the test is not going to fail because it's going to be skipped. Okay, as you can see here, the test has been skipped. It's not failed. This is an skipped test because of that feature that get browser path. The browser path is not fine because I cannot have a Safari in my machine, and I'm creating an assumption to skip this test. I have the equivalent test, but with a more compact API using Selenium Jupyter with this annotation, which is specific of Selenium Jupyter, enable if browser available. Okay, Safari. So if I run this test again, the test is not going to be run. Okay? It's skipped. Okay, because Safari is not installed in my computer. So let's move on to another feature. And that one I had to say this is my favorite feature of 𝒂𝒂 Manager 5. Okay, this is the ability to create browsers, to use browsers in Docker containers. So let me show you with the code, directly with the code. Okay. 𝒂𝒂 Manager 5 provides this kind of methods. Okay, you can see I am using the Chrome driver, but I also use this method, browser in Docker. So as a result, I am not using the Chrome local anymore. I am going to pull the Docker images from the latest version of Chrome. Okay, I'm going to connect to Docker Hub when I'm not, 𝒂𝒂 does, connect to Docker Hub, pull the proper latest image for Chrome, and well, I use this instance to create my driver. Okay, so well, if I run this test, it's quite boring what is going to happen, because I am not going to see anything, because everything happens without a graphical user interface. I pull, you can read the logs. I am pulling this image. It's already in my machine. For that, it takes so few time to run, and the test pass. Okay, and I have used Chrome driver, in Docker. Simply changing that, I am going to use Firefox in Docker. Okay, simply like that. Well, it's pulling, etc., and the test is supposed to be green again. So I have the equivalent test in Selenium Jupyter. I am not going to run because I don't have time, but as you can see, it's quite compact using this case, this annotation, Docker browser for Chrome. Okay. So let's move on to another very important feature, which is, well, the ability to connect with VNC and also recording. This is quite elegant, in my opinion. what they can do here. Let me show you this test. Well, this test use browser in Docker, but also enable VNC. I'm going to do another thing. Enable recording. Okay. I'm going to connect to VNC and also record the iteration. Okay, assuming that I have Docker in my machine, of course. This is a Windows machine, but even that I have Docker. And I'm going to wait 30 seconds to interact with the browser. So if I run this, I need to save. If I run this, I need to look at the threads because in here, that URL allows me to connect to the browser. Okay, this is my test. Okay, it's running. Now it's waiting for me, but I can do something like this. Okay, whatever. I can interact. Sorry, I can interact with the browser and do different stuff. Right, it's about to finish. Whatever. Okay, I am interacting with the browser, and when the 30 seconds finish, okay, that is closing because the test has finished. The idea is that, well, I have interacted with the tests, and also in my local drive, I have the recording. This MP4 file has been created. It's the file I created for just, this is the installation I did. Okay, this is what I have just done. So last regarding to Docker is that I had the ability to use a given browser, even beta and dev version, okay, using browser version. Okay. I am not going to run this test because I don't have much time, but it's quite interesting that connect to a given version, for example, whatever version I want to use, or even beta and dev versions for Chrome and Firefox. Okay, so that's my opinion. It's a good feature. Finally, 𝒂𝒃 Manager 5 also provides monitoring capabilities, and for that I have released another project. It's Browser Watcher. Browser Watcher is a browser extension for different features beyond the capabilities of the Selenium WebDriver. And the idea is that 𝒂𝒃 Manager and Selenium Jupyter injects this extension to the browser control with Selenium WebDriver, provide extra features. For instance, this test allows, well, I need to invoke watch in order to inject this extension, and thanks to that, I have in the 𝒂𝒃 Manager API this method, get logs. I'm going to gather the logs of the browser console easily in one line. Okay, that's something that wasn't impossible to do in Firefox, but with this, I can do it very quickly. And for that, I have an example of my book with, in the console, it has these trays, okay, 5 trays. So if I run this, what I'm going to do is to inject the browser extension, get the logs, and assert that the gathered logs are supposed, like expected, 5, and I print these logs in the console. Okay, that can be used even in a browser in Docker. I'm not going to do because I don't have time, but simply using that and that, I can gather, in this case, the logs of a browser in browser. In fact, I'm going to do this. What's on display? That's another feature because also I can see these logs if you want. For example, like this, so that to sleep for some time for you to see this. Okay. What's on display? It's for, well, taking a look to the logs in the user interface. That's that's something that Browser Watcher does for us, just in case I want to check the logs while they are produced. So I think I am already done. Oh no, that's another test. You can record the interaction using this. Well, this is also interesting. Let me show you in a second. You can even record your interaction with a test. Okay, even if you are not using Docker, with watch and with start recording and stop recording, I am going to record the interaction with my browser. Okay, this is thanks to the extension browser watcher, and now it's using H. This is a test that waits for the result, okay, for some seconds. And as a result, in my downloads folder, I'm going to have this recording, okay, that iteration in here. That's the recording of that test. Okay, so I think I'm done. This is then my last slide. Some takeaways. Selenium WebDriver, in my opinion, it's not a browser automation library. Okay, sorry, it's not a browser automation library, not a testing library. Sorry. Yeah, that's my impression. It's about browser automation, but not necessarily for testing, because if we want to use testing with Selenium WebDriver, we need another tools and frameworks like JUnit, TestMG, Maven integrated for the big tool, AssetJ, and so on. And my final word is about these two projects I curated with WebDriver and Selenium Jupyter that might help you to reduce the complexity of developing these tests. First, providing automating delivery management, which is a relevant feature for this test. And also I have shown you other advanced features for your tests like Docker and so on. So I think that's it. Thanks for your attention. I think we have 5 minutes. It's not that much, but at least it's something for some questions, if any.
Thank you, Boni. That was quite informative. I will put the question on the stage. So first question is from Jatin. Does WebDriver Manager works with remote WebDriver?
Well, when you use remote WebDriver, you don't need to resolve the driver, because the driver is supposed to be resolved whenever the browser is. Being said that, WebDriver Manager might help for setting up a Selenium grid infrastructure. In fact, if that's the question, okay, you can take a look to the documentation in other issues in Selenium grid. WebDriver Manager has a CLI, can be used as a CLI, okay? And you can use WebDriver Manager from the shell to resolve a driver, okay? And that driver can be used for a Selenium grid, okay? So somehow, yes, Selenium WebDriver can be used for supporting Selenium WebDriver by resolving the drivers required by Selenium grid.
Great. The next question we have is implicit weight deprecated in Selenium 4?
No, it's not. It's still there. It's not recommended to use implicit weight, okay? Has different drawbacks because, well, the implementation depends on the driver. So it's still in the Selenium 4 API, but it's not recommended.
Great. The next question we have, can we expect JUnit built in with Selenium anytime soon?
Can we expect JUnit built in with Selenium? I don't understand the question. JUnit built in with Selenium. I'm not sure what the question is about.
Well, probably
different projects. So I didn't see the point of, you can use together. Of course, I recommend you to use together, but Selenium, well, there is not something that is going to be out of the box in JUnit, if that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, and you will always leave this preference for the user to pick what framework they're comfortable with.
Exactly. You can use JUnit, you can use TestMG, or you cannot use any testing framework at all. Maybe exactly. you use a Java with a main method and embed your Selenium calls in there. It's not a test. It's simply a Java class with some Selenium WebDriver API calls.
Great. Last question that we can take, which test reporting tool or library you love to use while running end-to-end test with Selenium?
That's a good question. There are different reporting tools. I recommend you to the people that make that question to take a look to the repository. I recommend you because in here there are examples for different, for example, using the Unit 5, different testing reporting frameworks. So if I'm not wrong, it's in Capture 8. No, not Capture 8, it's Capture 9. Reporting in here.
We can't see your screen, just for records, Boni. You stop sharing your screen.
You can check out. This is a step report. Well, there are different testing reporting tools you can use. Okay, in here on also there were other API. I can't remember now, but yes, in my book I recommend you to use different testing frameworks. Some of them are open source. So yeah, I recommend you to take a look to this code. And well, for me, I don't usually use in a testing report because I simply with the output of Maven or Gradle, for me it's enough. But being said that, for large projects, it's good to have a good dashboard, and for that the reporting framework can be helpful.
Great. Sorry guys, that's all we could take today. We are top of the clock already. Thank you, Boni, for a wonderful session. I hope audience found it very insightful. We would be hosting all our recorded session on our YouTube channel, so you can always refer that too. Again, thank you once again. Happy testing, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.